Zohran Mamdani's election as New York's mayor sent shockwaves through financial media. A Democratic socialist promising higher taxes, rent freezes, and city-owned grocery stores will soon control America's financial capital. Headlines warned of an exodus of Wall Street firms fleeing as far as Texas to escape the mayor-elect. But when you look at what they're actually building in Texas, who's funding it, and the timing, something doesn't add up. What's happening in the Lone Star State goes far beyond a mayoral election, and what's being built there could reshape American finance in ways most people haven't even noticed yet. My name is Louis, and you're watching Coin Bureau Finance. Before we begin, nothing in this video is financial advice. It's just our view on Wall Street's great southward migration. We're bringing you the how, where, and why, but never what to buy. If you're looking for investment advice, look elsewhere. Otherwise, smash that like and let's dig in. So, Yall Street. It's a new term floating around TradFi circles for the growing financial hub in Texas, particularly around Dallas-Fort Worth. If you've been following US news recently, you might have heard about it as a destination for the political refugees fleeing Wall Street after the election of Zohran Mamdani as mayor of New York City. If you haven't been following, the new mayor-elect won a landslide victory on promises of new taxes on corporations and high earners, an immediate rent freeze, and universal childcare. His platform even pledged city-run grocery stores. The media response was apocalyptic. Headlines warned of reverse class warfare, disastrous policies, and the end of New York City as we know it. Financial firms, the story went, were packing up and heading south before the communist crackdown began. The New York Post reported, quote, nearly 1 million New Yorkers ready to flee. Fox Business predicted a New York City business exodus. Fortune ran with escape from New York. You get the idea. On closer inspection, though, the evidence is a little underwhelming. Most of those headlines were spun out of a single opinion poll. Around 45 out of 500 respondents said that they would leave New York City if Mamdani became mayor. When extrapolated to the city's 8.4 million population, that's around 760,000 people, a number that was generously rounded up to, quote, nearly 1 million in media reporting. The other evidence for a Mamdani-related evacuation of Wall Street were anecdotes from real estate agents in Florida claiming their phones were, quote, ringing off the hook with nervous New Yorkers. There was a reported, quote, $100 million surge in Florida real estate contracts and stories of wealthy clients and their firms escaping any way that they could. For what it's worth, Fox Business ran one article about a New York exodus with a subheading, quote, Trump calls Miami a refuge for those fleeing New York City communism under new Mamdani leadership. Same refugees, different asylum. What's the difference? Somehow, though, not everyone was convinced. One household market analyst asked, quote, why is all the quote-unquote evidence on the fleeing the city narratives based on anecdotal conversations with real estate agents in submarkets where the New York City wealthy might move when there's actual data? And that's a good question. So, what does the actual data show? Well, New York City's fiscal year 2025 ended on the 30th of June 2025. That's after Mamdani's primary victory, when the exodus should have already begun. The data show total tax revenues hit $80 billion. That's an increase of $6 billion, or 8%, over the previous year. The city beat its own optimistic budget forecast by more than $3 billion. As far as the fleeing tax base, well, personal income tax and the pass-through entity tax, the taxes paid by high earners, grew 17.6% year over year. Business income tax grew 6%. In October, the New York State Comptroller reported that securities industry profits are on pace to top $60 billion in 2025. That would be an all-time record. First-half profits were up 31%. The Comptroller noted these gains, quote, provide an important boost for tax revenues. The Comptroller's November 2025 report put it plainly, quote, contrary to all post-pandemic warnings, the city has evaded a doom loop. Rather than collapsing into the predicted death spiral, office valuations and tax levies racked closely with the optimistic scenario. So the narrative is that Wall Street is fleeing a socialist mayor. The data shows record tax revenues, record Wall Street profits, and high earners paying significantly more in taxes than the year before. Something here doesn't add up. And by the way, speaking of adding up, if you're active in the markets, you're probably sick of watching fees add up with your every move. If that sounds like you, do yourself a favor and check out the Coin Bureau Deals page. There, you'll find exclusive deals and bonuses to help you keep more of your trading profits and pay less of the fees that eat away at them. To find out more, just scan the QR code over here or hit the link down in the description. These offers won't last forever though, so grab them while you still can. Now, going back to Wall Street. If Wall Street isn't fleeing in terror, who is? Well, the answer is simple: landlords. The narrative of panic is being pushed almost exclusively by the real estate sector. Business leaders spent over $40 million trying to stop Mamdani before the election, and real estate was leading the charge. That's because they're directly threatened by his rent freeze policies. Billionaire Barry Sternlicht, CEO of Starwood Capital Group, gave the most direct warning. He explicitly linked Mamdani's housing policies to, quote, rent defaults, and warned it could, quote, turn New York City into Mumbai. He told CNBC his New York team was, quote, for the first time saying maybe we should leave. Danny Fishman, CEO of Gaia Real Estate, said he would, quote, further cut his firm's exposure to the city on every front in direct response to the election. But Wall Street proper, your JPs, your Goldmans, they have been singing a very different tune. Take Jamie Dimon, for example. Months before the mayoral election, he had called Mamdani's policies, quote, ideological mush that means nothing in the real world. But after Mamdani won, he personally called the mayor-elect to keep the lines of communication open and publicly stated he, quote, looks forward to meeting with him. On Mamdani's pledges to address inequality, Dimon said he is, quote, all in to help. He even recommended Mamdani consult with Detroit's outgoing mayor, a city where JP Morgan has been a major partner in revitalization programs. Meanwhile, the Partnership for New York City, an NGO representing over 300 major employers, including Dimon and Goldman Sachs' David Solomon, issued a congratulatory statement. Quote, we congratulate Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani and look forward to helping him achieve his affordability goals. President Catherine Wild said much of the same. Quote, the partnership works with whoever wins. Zohran has won resoundingly, and so we will seek to be his partner. And if you're wondering why these people aren't crashing out like the billionaire landlords, it's because the mayor of New York can't unilaterally raise income or business taxes. These policies require approval from the state legislature and Governor Kelly Hochul in Albany, and she has already expressed opposition to Mamdani's proposed tax hikes. So, real estate is panicking, Wall Street is engaging, and the mayor can't actually do what he's promising without Albany. The Mamdani exodus narrative is paper-thin and contradicted by the data and actions of key players on Wall Street. But here's the thing. Wall Street firms really are leaving New York, and a lot of them are moving to Texas, just not for the reasons that you've been hearing. Also, not on the timeline that the media suggests. The fact is, the city's financial footprint has been shrinking since the turn of the century. The first wave of outward migration was triggered by something completely different, namely 9/11. The 2001 attacks on the World Trade Center were a catastrophic demonstration of what happens when you concentrate the entire financial system in a few blocks of Lower Manhattan. Wall Street firms quickly came to see geographic concentration as an existential risk. Business continuity, aka survival, became the priority. Every major firm built robust backup operations in New Jersey, Connecticut, and other states. The 2008 financial crisis was the second blow. Dodd-Frank imposed new capital requirements and compliance burdens, prompting an era of aggressive cost-cutting on Wall Street. Firms identified back-office roles, IT, accounting, operations, compliance, as major cost centers and accelerated moving these functions to lower-cost domestic jurisdictions. This time around, taxes were indeed a push factor. New York's combined top marginal income tax rate for high earners can exceed 14.8%, the highest in the nation. Texas and Florida have no state income tax at all. At the same time, commercial rent in Manhattan and the cost of living for employees were persistent drains on profitability. Then came the pandemic, and with it a mandatory global proof of concept that remote and hybrid work models were operationally viable. This untethered a large portion of the workforce from a physical Wall Street office. Between 2019 and 2023, all pre-Mamdani, New York State lost 158 investment firms with a collective $993 billion in assets under their management. So forget the mayor, the financial sector's physical footprint in New York City was shrinking before Mamdani even started high school. The real push factors were risk after 9/11, cost after 2008, and technology after the pandemic. It's a long-term trend that has recently been turbocharged by what they're building in the Deep South, Yall Street. Sounds cute, but it's a massive, permanent, and real migration of financial infrastructure and jobs to Texas. Let's look at the numbers. While New York's financial services workforce has grown only 4% since 2019, other hubs have exploded. Austin grew 27%, and Dallas grew by 11%. By 2024, Texas had officially surpassed the state of New York in the total number of financial sector employees. JP Morgan Chase now employs more workers in Texas than in its home state of New York, with 12,500 stationed at a massive technology and operations campus in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Goldman Sachs is building a $500 million, 800,000 square foot campus in Dallas, expected to house over 5,000 staff. Charles Schwab relocated its global headquarters from San Francisco to Westlake, Texas. Bank of America has got 1,000 employees occupying 9 floors in a new Dallas tower. And the nature of the migration has changed too. Texas is no longer just operational muscle. Goldman Sachs is now placing strategic roles, investment, advisory, and risk in its Dallas campus. These are the kind of jobs that you'd expect to see in a center of control, not a regional outpost. Now, if you're wondering why Texas, let's take a look at the business environment there. There's no corporate income tax, and there's no personal income tax. Instead, the state uses tax revenue to pay major firms to relocate to Texas with aggressive grants from the Texas Enterprise Fund. Even better is the regulatory environment. Thanks to a 2023 law nicknamed the Death Star Bill, Texas has reined in its progressive cities like Dallas and Austin by preventing them from enacting local labor ordinances stricter than state law. That means no paid sick leave mandates and no higher local minimum wages. It gives corporations regulatory uniformity and insulates them from the local progressive politics that they're dealing with in New York. Even if every county in Texas were to vote in their own share of Zohran, it wouldn't mean a thing on Yall Street. But the story of Yall Street isn't just about lower taxes and insulating companies from local politics. There's a bigger picture that explains the why now and the sheer scale of the pivot to Texas. The state is mounting a direct assault on the 2 pillars that have held up American finance for a century: New York as the market center and Delaware as the corporate law center. The most visible part of this assault is the Texas Stock Exchange, TXSE, a new, fully electronic national securities exchange headquartered in Dallas. It received SEC approval in October 2025 and is scheduled to begin trading in 2026. The TXSE has raised more than $160 million from BlackRock and Citadel Securities. When the world's largest asset manager and the world's largest market maker throw their weight behind a new securities exchange, you can be sure that it's not some pet project. The exchange's CEO is already taking swipes at the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ. He's positioning the TXSE as, quote, CEO-friendly and trying to capitalize on corporate discontent with the, quote, increasing compliance costs and listing requirements at the NYSE and NASDAQ. However, a race to the bottom it is not. The TXSE's proposed listing rules are actually more stringent than the NASDAQ capital markets and line up closely with the standards at the NYSE. Likewise, its corporate governance rules are also substantially similar to the incumbents, making it easy for companies to transfer or dual list. The threat is credible enough that both NYSE and NASDAQ have launched defensive Texas-based outposts this year. NYSE Texas and NASDAQ Texas. They're following their clients and trying to defend market share. But the assault on New York's market is only half the story. The other, arguably more powerful challenge is to Delaware's laws. Texas's final, decisive move came in May, when the state legislature passed Senate Bill 29. This law modernized the Texas Business Organizations Code to make Texas the most management-friendly corporate environment in the country. In a nutshell, SB 29 shifts the balance of power in a company from the shareholders to the CEOs. It does this through, for example, the business judgment rule, which codifies a very strong presumption that directors and officers act in good faith and are protected from liability. This is a direct challenge to Delaware's judiciary-led common law system, offering executives a clearer, state-backed legal shield. SB 29 is also an explicitly anti-shareholder activism bill. It significantly narrows a shareholder's rights to inspect company books and records, while allowing companies to eliminate traditional fiduciary duties, like the duties of loyalty and care in their governing documents. So, read between the lines and you'll see that it's not only Manhattan's lunch that Texas is trying to eat. The state is building a complete, vertically integrated ecosystem. With SB 29, it's competing for a company's state of incorporation. With the TXSC, it's competing for that company's stock listing. The CEO-friendly legal and market framework is a far more profound threat to Wall Street, and indeed Delaware, than any mayoral election. And this has created a new set of problems. For New York, the post-pandemic fiscal doom loop scenario has been averted. The city's tax base is currently resilient, driven by record Wall Street profits. What hasn't been averted, though, is a post-pandemic crisis in commercial real estate. The office vacancy rate reached a historic high of 22.7% in late 2023. 2 years on, Q2 2025 data from the New York City Office of the Comptroller had it at 22.6%. Prime Class A buildings are holding up. Older Class B and C buildings are in their own doom loop of weak demand and falling tax contributions. As these properties are reassessed downwards, it chips away at the property tax base, a slow bleed fiscal crisis. At the same time, New York has a historic housing shortage, with a vacancy rate of 1.4%, the lowest it's been since 1968. The paradox of a housing crisis amid a historic glut of empty buildings is what got Mamdani elected. Now, what about Texas? Well, the Lone Star State is winning from TradFi migrating south, but it's also winning New York's and California's problems. Funnily enough, the primary consequence of this is also a housing crisis. The influx of highly paid tech and finance workers has created immense pressure on housing stock. Texas median home prices rose 40% from 2019 to 2023. At the same time, there has been a persistent shortage of well over 300,000 homes since 2021. Dallas is now the highest cost of living city in Texas. The rapid growth has placed widespread concern and significant strain on infrastructure, things like transportation systems, the power grid, and water resources. These pressures have given rise to a new yes in my backyard political movement, demanding denser housing and zoning reforming in Texas. These are the exact political dynamics of the coastal cities that major firms are allegedly fleeing. Now, that's all very interesting, but what does it mean for the markets? Well, it looks like American finance is on the road to permanent decentralization. This reduces the single point of failure risk that 9/11 exposed, but it introduces new complexity. The US now has full-blown interstate regulatory competition on corporate law with Texas SB 29 versus Delaware, on market structure with TXSC versus NYSE and NASDAQ, and on labor law with Texas's Death Star bill versus New York. This creates a landscape for regulatory arbitrage, where firms can relocate to jurisdictions with looser rules. This is likely going to lead to more market volatility, fragmentation, manipulation, and less protection for investors and indeed workers. It sounds like a great time to be a CEO, though. Anyway, Yall Street. Not actually an asylum for political refugees from Wall Street. The Mamdani exodus is a useful nonsense for the New York real estate sector, but easily demolished by Wall Street's record profits, the city's record tax revenues, and the fact that TradFi leaders are engaging with the mayor-elect rather than fleeing. That aside, though, there are some really big changes afoot. Texas appears to be slowly rugging New York's grip on the U.S. financial sector, and Delaware's status as the go-to state of incorporation. New England has held these monopolies for so long that they seemed permanent and inevitable. But Texas is building a vertically integrated alternative designed to be more CEO-friendly, more management protective, and less shareholder accountable. In the process, it's inheriting the same problems that are normally associated with cities like New York. Things like gentrification, housing crisis, affordability crisis, rising inequality, and so on. Still, the biggest loser in all of this, though, is probably New York commercial real estate. That sector is going to need more than tall tales if it's going to get out of its post-pandemic doom spiral. And if you want to find out just how badly that's going, well, why not check out our full report on the state of US CRE right over here. And so that's going to be all from me for now. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. It's Lewis, over and out.